The very first teaching that Buddha spoke of when coming from his enlightenment was the teaching of the cause of suffering and the way out of suffering, which he calls the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. Depending on the text you read, the cause of suffering is either ignorance, attachment, greed, or desire. One can see how these are tightly related, but underneath the surface there is one common thread that they all share, and that is change. Let's take a deeper look and understand how change is ingrained in all these four qualities. Desire. When we desire, we are viewing a particular object as being different than it currently is. It could be a house that we have and wanting it to be larger. It could be the career that we are in and wanting it to be more satisfying. It could be the relationship that we're in and wanting it to be just a little bit easier. It's a point of view that something we are experiencing can be better. For this to become more enjoyable, they need to change, evolve, adjust in some sort of way. It is the desire for this change, evolution, and adjustment that causes suffering, the Buddha says. Attachment. When we are attached to something, we don't want it to change. We want it to remain the same, and we hope to have it for as long as possible. The truth is that nothing lasts forever, and so what we are attached to will eventually change, and we will begin to suffer once this change begins. Even when this doesn't change, our emotions toward this thing will eventually change, and we will long for the emotions that we felt, thus causing suffering. Ignorance. Ignorance is when we lack the understanding of something, or our understanding is just totally wrong. And due to the lack of understanding, we behave in a way that has negative consequences. To prevent the consequences from happening in the future, we must change our way of understanding in order to change the results we are stuck with. Ignorance influences the way our world responds to us. So if we want the outside circumstances to change, we must change the circumstances of our inside world. Greed. Greed is when we have something of value but do not use it to the benefit of others. It's not the fact of having large abundances of something that is the issue. It is the way in which the abundance is used to create change. We can have abundance of something, but if we are using this abundance for the sake of feeding our own desires and not pursuing the act of positive change that this abundance can have, then we will experience suffering. Greed of resources is a byproduct of desires and attachments. So through greed, we are feeding these two things in which are increasing our suffering. So the common thread amongst these four causes of suffering is the fact that change is involved or required. Let's look a little bit deeper and examine the nature of change itself. So it is said that God possesses three energies. These three energies are found in all things within reality. These three energies are written within the word itself, God, where G stands for grow, O stands for organize, and D stands for destroy. Everything in nature grows into something. It is a seed at some point that will grow and serve a function. Everything in reality organizes and evolves to serve the purpose it is designed to evolve into. Finally, everything in reality will be destroyed, and its pieces will be used to create something else. It is this cycle of creation, balance, and destruction that is in everything. The fact of the matter is that everything is coming into existence, it is changing, and it is going away. So if change is inevitable, and it is a change that is the root of all our suffering, then how do I end my own suffering? The Buddhist teachings point to the Eightfold Path as a solution, but these teachings will take time to understand, which is worth examining. But for now, let's come to an understanding of our own suffering more deeply. To do this, we must look toward our own desires, attachments, ignorances, and greed. We can examine our desires and ask ourselves, why deep down at the root is this desire there? We can examine our attachments and acknowledge that our happiness will be temporary because change will eventually come. We can be honest and acknowledge our ignorance and begin to find the wisdom we need to improve our circumstances. We can look at our own greed and examine the amount of positive change we can have if we didn't keep this abundance to ourselves. The root of our suffering sits within our desires, attachments, ignorance, and greed. When we begin to understand our suffering, it is at this point we can find what truly makes us happy and understand more deeply who we truly are inside.